A policeman was patrolling a local parking spot overlooking a golf course. He drove by a car and saw a couple inside with the dome light on. There was a young man in the driver's seat reading a computer magazine and a young lady in the back seat knitting. He stopped to investigate. He walked up to the driver's window and knocked. The young man looked up, cranked the window down, and said, "Yes, officer?" "What are you doing?" the policeman asked. "What does it look like?" answered the young man. "I'm reading a magazine." Pointing towards the young lady in the back seat, the officer then asked, "And what is she doing?" The young man looked over his shoulder and replied, "What does it look like?" "She's knitting." "And how old are you?" the officer then asked the young man. "I'm 19, he replied. "And how old is she?" asked the officer. The young man looked at his watch and said, "Well, in about 12 minutes she'll be 18. Bob, a lawyer, was driving home over the Golden Gate Bridge, after spending a great day on the ocean fishing. His catch, cleaned and filleted, was wrapped in newspaper on the passenger side floor. He was late getting home and was speeding. Wouldn't you know that a cop jumped out, radar gun in hand, and motioned him to the side of the bridge. Bob pulled over like a good citizen. The cop walked up to the window and said, "You know how fast you were going, boy?" Bob thought for a second and said, 60? 67 miles per hour, son." 67 miles per hour in a 55 zone, said the cop. "But if you already knew, officer," replied Bob, "why did you ask me?" Fuming over Bob's answer, the officer growled and said in a sarcastic fashion, "That's speeding, and you're getting a ticket and a fine." The cop took a good close look at Bob in his stained fishing attire and said, "You don't even look like you have a job." "Why, I've never seen anyone so scruffy in my entire life," Bob answered. "I've got a job. I have a good, well-paying job." The cop leaned in the window, smelling Bob's fish, and said, "What kind of job would a bum like you have?" "I'm a rectum stretcher," replied Bob. "What did you say, boy?" asked the patrolman. "I'm a rectum stretcher." The cop, scratching his head, asked, "What does a rectum stretcher do?" Bob explained, "People call me up and say they need to be stretched, so I go over to their house. I start with a couple of fingers, then a couple more, then one whole hand, and then two. Then I slowly pull them farther and farther apart until it's a full 6 feet across." The cop, absorbed with these bizarre images in his mind, asked, "What the hell do you do with a 6-foot Isla?" Bob said, "You give him a radar gun and place him by a bridge." Two prostitutes were riding around town with a sign on top of their car which said, "Two prostitutes $50 A policeman, seeing the sign, stopped them and told them they'd either have to remove the sign or go to jail. Just at the time, another car passed with a sign saying, "Jesus saves." They asked the cop why he let the other car go and he said, "Well, that's a little different, it pertains to religion." So the two ladies took their sign down and took off. The following day found the same cop in the area, when he noticed the two ladies driving around with a large sign on their car again. Figuring he had an easy bust, he began to catch up with them, when he noticed the new sign which read, "Two angels seeking Peter $50." So I went to the store the other day. I was only in there for about 5 minutes, and when I came out there was a copper writing a parking ticket. So I went up to him and said, "Come on mate, how about giving a bloke a break?" He ignored me and continued writing the ticket. So I called him a pencil neck Nazi. He glared at me, and started writing another ticket for having bald tires. So I called him a horse fucker. He finished the second ticket, and put it on the car with the first. Then he started writing a third ticket. This went on for about 20 minutes. The more I abused him, the more tickets he wrote. I didn't give a shit. My car was parked around the corner.
Two cars were waiting at a stoplight. The light turned green, but the man didn't notice it. A woman in the car behind him is watching traffic pass around them. The woman begins pounding on her steering wheel and yelling at the man to move. The man doesn't move. The woman is going ballistic inside her car, ranting and raving at the man, pounding on her steering wheel and dash. The light turns yellow and the woman begins to blow the car horn, flips him off, and screams profanity and curses at the man. The man looks up, sees the yellow light and accelerates through the intersection just as the light turns red. The woman is beside herself, screaming in frustration as she misses her chance to get through the intersection. As she is still in mid-rant, she hears a tap on her window and looks up into the barrel of a gun held by a very serious-looking policeman. The policeman tells her to shut off her car while keeping both hands in sight. She complies, speechless at what is happening. After she shuts off the engine, the policeman orders her to exit her car with her hands up. She gets out of the car and he orders her to turn and place her hands on her car, then handcuffs her and takes her to the police station where she is fingerprinted, photographed, searched, booked and placed in a cell. After a couple of hours, a policeman approaches the cell and opens the door for her. She is escorted back to the booking desk where the original officer is waiting with her personal effects and says, "I'm really sorry for this mistake. But you see, I pulled up behind your car while you were blowing your horn, flipping the guy off in front of you, and cussing a blue streak at him. I noticed the Juice Life license plate holder, the What Would Jesus Do bumper sticker, the Follow Me to Sunday School bumper sticker, and the chrome-plated Christian fish emblem on the trunk. Naturally, I assumed you had stolen the car.